Start the webinar now. So hello, everyone. My name is Aurelie Garcia-Tella. I'm a senior research assistant at the Community College Research Center. And what does that mean? It means I absolutely love dual enrollment. I absolutely love talking about it, and I'm a researcher here. And so before we really get into it, I just wanted to do a quick overview of today's discussion. So first, we're going to go into the national dual enrollment research, talk about the student experience, talk about why it matters, and then we're going to go into a conversation with our first ever CCRC dual enrollment student advisory panel. We have about 5 panelists who will be joining us today from all parts of the United States, and they're really excited to be sharing their dual enrollment experience with you guys and just show why it's such an impactful program to be a part of. Before I move into the slides, I also wanted to preface that this research is continuous. We're always doing more stuff. A lot of the data, which is super exciting, we got from iPads as of like last week, so we'll be sharing some new stuff. And I'm also a former dual enrollment student. I grew up in Florida. I did dual enrollment there and got my associate's degree in high school. And so a lot of our deep work, which you'll get those puns soon, really hits home. So I'm going to move into the presentation. So the first things first is that dual enrollment is big, it's growing, and it's especially growing in the community college sector. So this shows how the growth has happened between 1999 to 2023. But when we look at this specifically within the 2022 to 2023 academic year, you can see that there's several states where the percentage of community college enrollment, a huge part of that is dual enrollment. And on top of that, when we look at now with our new iPads data that just came out, and thank you, John, for doing the analysis on it and getting this out, you'll see that this has grown significantly in a couple of states, especially in California, where it's over 20%, 31% up in Nevada. And those are just a couple of states where over 1 year, this growth has become exponential. I do want to just preface that the first count of this data did come out last year, and there is some instances of undercounting still, like you can see with Connecticut. And so this data, as it is continuously improving, we'll learn a lot about how dual enrollment is growing nationally. So again, how do we compare this to the first set of data we got from iPads to now? What it means is that 2.5 million students were taking dual enrollment courses during the 2022 to 23 school year. And this has grown significantly to now 2.8 million. And as you can see on screen, a lot of this comes from the community college sector, about 2 million students right now. But public 4-years are starting to get a huge number of dual enrollment students. And on top of that, public 4-years, private 4-years are getting former dual enrollment students, which we like to call stealth transfer students. I'm going to just shout out that blog and Inside Higher Ed because I'm not covering it today, but check that out when you can. So what do we see nationally when we talk and look at dual enrollment? We've seen a lot of different analysis that are looking at what does this look like nationally, who is being served, and who is not being served. One of my favorite publications that I love reading on my off time is the Research Priorities publication that's on screen. It really does outline what are these key priorities that we need to be looking at if we want to make dual enrollment more intentional, accessible, and equitable for students that want to come from all parts of life to be able to experience college. And this is especially important because we've seen through analyses that dual enrollment benefits students who may not otherwise go to college, especially those coming from underserved groups. Talking about Black students, Hispanic, Latino students, as well as low-income students and other priority groups. So what does this look like nationally when you break it down by demographic? What we've seen is this instance of programs of privilege, and you may hear that between your colleagues, but you also might hear it when us as researchers are presenting on it, because white students are disproportionately overrepresented a lot of the times in dual enrollment programs compared to any other group, so American Indian, Black, Hispanic, multiracial students, as well as students with disabilities, which is under IDEA, and English language learners, which is ELL. But what we have seen is 1 in 5 districts across the United States have been closing this this gap for Black and Latino students. And this work is continuously improving. So although that it's more apparent that programs of privilege does exist, there's also more of an awareness of how can we make our programs more intentional and more accessible. Which brings me to this little bubble of these questions that we as researchers have been asking in the field a lot, which is access to whom? Who is getting access to these dual enrollment programs? What do they look like? Who are our students? And access to what? What are they getting access to? Is it a high quality program? Is it going to connect to their pathway after high school? And is it going to be something in a field of interest that they want to pursue after graduation? And so over the past, I don't even know how many years at this point, probably like a decade, we've been researching guided pathways at the Community College Research Center. And so these guided pathways reforms that we've been observing in the field and we've done tons of research on have led us to really looking into what does this look like at community colleges for dual enrollment programs. Specifically, we did some research for the dual enrollment playbook, and shout out to the new book, More Essential Than Ever. There's a chapter in it which really outlines what are these key strategies and practices, which is the DEEP framework I'll get into in a minute, that can make dual enrollment intentional and accessible for all students. What's so interesting about this work is that while studying guided pathways, we saw that there were community colleges and high school partnerships that were really extending what they learned from guided pathways into high school programs, especially dual enrollment programs. And so what we've done over the past, I want to say 5 to 6 years, it feels longer than that now, we've been working to develop this framework for reform, which we call DEEP. So you may hear a lot of DEEP puns coming later. But what is DEEP? What does that mean? It means thinking about dual enrollment programs with the end in mind. So there's 4 practice areas in DEEP. There's outreach, alignment, advising, and support. And what it is it's rethinking what is this leading to? So we're helping students understand this program, good outreach to it, aligning to programs of their interest, providing advising, like checkpoint advising that matters, and wraparound supports to allow them to succeed in the program. But what is it leading to after? Is it leading to a workforce program that's in their field of interest, a community college program that will transfer to a 4-year, or what else are students interested in, and how can we make dual enrollment a purposeful pathway for all students, especially those who would never enter college unless this was an option for them? So now I'm going to transition into what dual enrollment students want. So in doing our deep research, when we were looking at community college and high school partnerships nationally to identify what were they doing, how are they spreading this deep type reform at their community college and high school partnerships, I really got this interest in like, what about all these students we're interviewing? We ended up interviewing 120 students in Texas and Florida, 97 of them, which we got consent to use their data in order to do a qualitative analysis. This qualitative field research happened at community colleges in Florida and Texas because it was the aim of our project at the time. But what's really interesting are the areas that the students represented. So Florida in general, it's a huge state. I grew up there. But it really does have such different demographics on different parts of the state. You have areas which are more suburban, areas which are more city-like, very rural. And so both in Texas and Florida, we were able to talk with students who represented these areas, different backgrounds, and we went to Title I high school partnerships. So we were being really intentional about what do historically underrepresented students want from this program. So now I'm going to go really quickly into the findings before I talk about some support strategies. So what we found were 6 things. I'll just throw them all up on screen. They wanted to know about their options earlier. So we heard from a lot of students that once they found out about dual enrollment, it wasn't that it was too late, but they wanted to take advantage of it earlier. And they wanted to maybe take more courses that were exploratory, or they wanted to take more courses that were within a major of their interest. They also wanted well-informed advisors who empowered them. We heard from a lot of students that although they loved their advisors, there were instances that they were hearing they might struggle a lot in a class, so maybe don't take that. Or they were hearing different information from the community college advisor and the high school counselor, or from their four-year university that they wanted to go after dual enrollment. So a lot of different conflicting information, and that was a finding that also came out of this study. Another thing that we learned was that students wanted their courses to be aligned with career and academic pathways in their field of interest. A lot of students, if not all the students we spoke to, saw dual enrollment as an opportunity to go to college. And I don't want to say that was a finding of the study, but that was something that I remember an anecdote that they would say. But we didn't always hear how their courses were connected to what they wanted to do. It was either ad hoc, or there were other things that were happening that just wasn't really available to them, or they found out late when the courses weren't offered in the semester that they did find dual enrollment in. A lot of students that we spoke to did take classes during COVID, so we asked them about their experiences, but then also a lot of our students were also taking online courses. And so what we heard was they wanted more hands-on, engaging experiences in these courses, because even if they couldn't be in person, they still wanted to feel like they were in college in some type of way. They also wanted to know, how do we balance high school, and then how do we balance like doing these courses? A lot of the times when we spoke with students, they would tell us about all these extracurriculars that they were doing and how it really allowed them to make more of an informed decision when they were provided with information on what the best option was for them, whether that was going towards an associate degree route or whether it was going to take a couple exploratory or just a couple classes of their interest. And lastly, a lot of the students we talked to were in historically underserved communities or places. And so they spoke to how they wanted to find scholarships and manage debt to help them attend college after dual enrollment. One student specifically that I think we mentioned in the brief asked all of us researchers, how did we pay for college after doing dual enrollment? Because a couple of the researchers on the team also did dual enrollment. And it was just an interesting finding that we were able to uncover from this research. So now I'm going to move into one of our panelists who couldn't join us for today's call, but's going to share what she thinks of the first three findings of our study.
Hello, my name is Erica Rayo, and I'm part of CCRC's Deep Student Advisory Panel. I'm a current freshman in college and a former dual enrollment student from high school, where I took 11 dual enrollment credits, including Introduction to Philosophy and the Social Emotional Learning of Children, and I took dual enrollment from freshman to junior year. I was introduced to dual enrollment through the word of a friend around 2 days before the start date, and let me tell you, my dad was livid. I was trying to figure out what the program even was while also trying to enroll in it in the same time. And during all of this, he was asking me, why are you doing this? This is so much work. What is this whole long application? Why are they asking about all of these different questions for you to take this? And honestly, I didn't know how to answer him. I didn't really know what I was getting into. I just knew that I would be taking supplemental classes from my community college, and I thought that that sounded really cool. However, we, as in me and my friend, were freshmen, so we only heard about the program from upperclassmen and not from our school directly. Had I known not only just about the dual enrollment program, but its options and applications in enhancing my education earlier, I would have been able to utilize the program for much longer and in a much more effective manner. For example, I could have chosen the classes that I wanted to sign up for much better and pertain them more to my interests instead of just signing up for only the ones that my school advertised, which resulted with me having a really random assortment of classes. I have Introduction to Philosophy, Social Emotional Learning of Children, and then I have Intro to Engineering. I took Psychology, and I also took a PSCN class. And when I came into college for the first time and I told them my assortment, they also told me that it was pretty unusual. I could have used this as an option to explore different trades and different routes before entering college while I was in high school. But I was undereducated and underinformed about the dual enrollment program, about the scope, about how much it can extend into your personal life and not just as an educational college credit transaction. And because I didn't know about these supplemental actions and applications of dual enrollment, I wasted valuable time on exploration and preparation for my college life. This goes to show that we should tell our students about dual enrollment and educate them more about the program earlier in high school, because when you're undereducated about it, it just looks like a college credit transaction when really it's much deeper than that. However, while I did start my dual enrollment journey late, I had a very well-educated and well-informed college advisor who was helping me with my application. They aided me in understanding the logistics, the credits, how to get my ID number, how to apply my ID number, what to log into, and how to navigate the homework portal that my local colleges were using, and I believe most colleges in California. Having a strong and educated counselor about these sort of topics, especially when you as a high school student are going into the college setting for the first time, is essential. I'm speaking as a first-year CC student who took my dual enrollment classes at the college that I'm currently studying at, so my perspective might be a little bit different. I have multiple friends who go to four-year universities that are asking me for help in how to apply for their ID number, how to navigate their student portal, what different credits mean and why certain classes are worth certain credits, how many credits you need to graduate, how to navigate your major, and overall just struggling with navigating the logistics and the nitty-gritty with college. And if I didn't have an extensive background in this through dual enrollment throughout high school, I would have been in the same position as them, and I would have been extremely stressed and extremely scared as a college freshman. Especially because something you learn when you get into college is that every counselor will have a different perspective on their schedule or what classes they think that you should take. However, it's important for you to establish a good understanding of what you want through exploration of dual enrollment, a good understanding of how to navigate these platforms and figuring out what classes you want by yourself, so then you can take control of your own education. As for CC students specifically, it's extremely difficult to try and figure out where you want to transfer, how to line up your schedule with the four-year universities when you don't really know how, and you have to rely on the opinions of multiple counselors who honestly will all tell you something fairly different. So being educated and having a good basis background with a well-educated college advisor from your high school is essential in taking control and ownership of your educational journey. Because at the end of the day, your education is exactly what it sounds like. And I'm directing this to students. Your education is exactly what it sounds like. It is your education. It is not the parents, it is not us counselors, it is not another students, it is not your peers, it is not what society is telling students that they should pursue. It is strictly the decision of the student, what they want to study and how they want to go about studying it. And they can be further empowered in this choice by not only having educated dual enrollment and college advisors, but aligning their dual enrollment studies with the career path or field of interest that they want to pursue. For many, dual enrollment is not just a college credit opportunity, it's not just a class, it's really an opportunity for them to explore their interests outside of the parameters of their high school curriculum, the expectations of their parents, from the expectations of their friend. It was something personal to them, and it was them making their educational journey theirs. By aligning dual enrollment courses with what we want to study, with our fields of interest and our career goals, we not only provide students with the opportunity to shape their future, but we encourage them to shape their future, which is what educators should be doing.
Great. Thank you, Erica, for sharing that, even though you're not here today, but I know you'll see the webinar later, so just know that we appreciate your expertise. Okay, so because we're a little bit short on time before I want to move to the panel, I'm just going to show all of these on screen. So for each want that we found in our study, we outlined a couple ways that folks can support their dual enrollment students from whatever role that they're in at the community college or at the high school. I'm just going to say a couple, just like pull a couple that are interesting and then kind of move on to the next video. For each of the wants, we kind of put one that if you have a little bit more funding or ways to be able to support students, that's kind of the last support strategy. But in our first related to options earlier, one thing that was super interesting that we thought would be worth highlighting is advertising in local media outlets, leveraging community organization and social media as a way for students to learn more about the program, really setting a standard of what should be known. We also know that like a lot of students will think that the test is what determines if they're going to be a good dual enrollment student. So if we could provide ways to have test prep, retesting options, alternatives, it depends on what state you're in, of course, but if we continue to encourage students who may think that that is a barrier, know that that is not always a barrier, and there's ways that we can study and help them get out of it. That is a great way to support what students want. And then the last thing just for this is just making sure that program maps aligned with partner institutions are regularly updated. There's a lot of websites out there that will provide dual enrollment students with information aligned to their pathways, but it doesn't always have the most accurate information. So just making sure we're paying attention to what information is on our websites and how students are accessing it, especially their parents and families. I'm going to move back to Erica, and then I'm going to chat a little, and then the panel.
And of course, this will only be effective if dual enrollment classes are intriguing and engaging, especially those that are online, which is all of the ones that I took in high school. I will admit, when the classes got a little boring and it was just discussion after discussion post, you kind of start to lose sight of why you're in the class, and it becomes just college credit again and not actually application and learning. I felt myself losing interest when the class wasn't engaging and I was attending and turning in assignments just to get it done and not to, like I was saying, build my future. That being said, taking college courses while you're in high school is no easy feat. Not just because of the workload, but because who wants to miss out on the high school experience? My situation is a little bit different because the majority of my dual enrollment classes were taken when I was bedridden, so I was also taking my high school classes at home, and a lot of that was just education and I didn't really have the opportunity to go out. But during junior year, when APs were ramping up and the excitement was growing in us becoming new seniors, I wanted to go out and I wanted to have fun, but I also knew, however, that in becoming an upcoming senior, I really had to figure out what I wanted to do in college and where I wanted to go. Unfortunately, in junior year, I didn't give myself that opportunity because I didn't know how to balance that high school dream life and education. So I didn't take dual enrollment that semester, but honestly, I really wish that I did because that was probably the most important year that I could have done it, and I missed it because I wanted to go out with my friends. I missed an opportunity to explore my interests, to discover new ones, and really figure out my goals academically before things became so much more serious. College. So had I known how to balance what I wanted and what I needed with dual enrollment, I think I would have been able to push myself in a good direction that who knows where it would have led. I mean, I didn't do it. So speaking of college life, college is crazy expensive. Even if you're not attending a four-year university, like attending a CC like I am, depending on your financial standing or the amount of units you're taking, and then adding gas and books and a lab coat, which I didn't even know that I needed to buy, and microscopic slides and test scantrons, the price just starts to add up and it starts to look a little bit intimidating. I'm blessed enough to get to work and to also have family that works and to also be a full-time student at the same time. So I was eligible for financial aid this semester. But just thinking of managing debt and scholarships and paying money in a couple years when I have to transfer is a thought that I don't even want to entertain. As a CC student, something that I think would be beneficial in helping us navigate the college scholarships and debt, and even for high school students, because Lord knows they're scared. I was too. I think it would be beneficial for us to have one central hub where students, management, teachers, companies, everyone who has something to offer in terms of financial aid, financial education, managing debt, just putting all of that into one spot. Because the reason why students want to know how to manage debt and scholarships is because we don't know where to start. A lot of students, especially high school students, and even me now, I only hear things from a friend of a teacher who has a son who goes to there and they told us to go to here, to go to that website and apply to here. And it becomes overwhelming because you lose track of all the connections and why you even went to your friend in the first place. So students, especially with our busy schedules, just want a simple and direct way to both learn and manage our financials. Those of us that are not finance or management type majors, it isn't something that becomes a priority until it builds up and it's at the top of your list and you don't know what to do.
Great. Thank you again, Erica. And I will say a lot of the sentiments that Erica shares are sentiments that we heard from students, but also from my dual enrollment experience. I'm gonna move again into these findings, and I can't see the chat, but I just want to remind everyone that the publication is already out there. This webinar will be available to you at any time to see after. And I can't really tell if there's any other questions about that, but I'm just going to move into the findings. So in relation to these online courses, so again, Erica spoke to that connection, that hands-on. Raising awareness about office hours and tutoring resources is a great way to help students build that connection and know that going to the college campus is accessible to them, even if they are just an online dual enrollment student. When it comes to balancing the high school experience and course taking, one thing that folks can do is creating clubs or student-led organizations, so communities where students who are all doing dual enrollment can build that affiliation, maybe even across high school campuses. Some of my closest friends did dual enrollment at a completely different high school than me, but we were going through the same thing, just through different partnerships. And in terms of managing debt and finding scholarships, really thinking about how can we inform students of the costs associated with transferring credits to different institutions, and how can we encourage them to apply to scholarships and create time for them to talk about financial aid, grants, and these other key terms that they may not know about, especially if their family didn't already go to college. I'm going to keep it going because now we have a panel discussion and Q&A with a couple of our dual enrollment student advisory panelists. I'm going to pull the screen down in a second, but just a heads up, in the chat is Sarah Griffin and John Fink. And then we have our students. Great. I think almost all of them are pinned. It's so great to see you guys. I mean, all my favorite people, but okay. I think we're all good. Ariana, I think your screen, it might be having a little issue, but I'm gonna get straight into it. So welcome. Thank you guys for being part of this webinar. I'm gonna start with Ariana. Would you mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your dual enrollment experience and which of the wants resonated most with you and why?
Hi everyone, my name is Ariana and I'm from New York State and I'm a first year college student and also a former dual enrollment student. So my dual enrollment experience was probably not the most ideal just because the resources that my school had was very limited. And when I first discovered dual enrollment, there was only one class offered that I personally could not take because of the prerequisites that weren't eligible for underclassmen. And so one of the wants that I think would resonate with me the most is definitely that students want to know about dual enrollment earlier. Because had I known about these prerequisites, I could have potentially taken the first dual enrollment class that we had at my school. So now I'm going to pass this off to Crystal.
Hi everyone, my name is Crystal Garcia. I'm a second year college student at UCLA and a formal dual enrollment student from California. I took roughly 50 dual enrollment credits from online classes to in-person classes and high school programs as well. So I kind of got to dip my toes into various areas of dual enrollment. I did it all within 2 years. So the want that resonates the most with me is knowing about this earlier. It was a lot of word of mouth, so I started a little bit later than most people do, and it became a little overwhelming trying to get my associates and do high school at the same time. So having started earlier, I would have been able to explore my interest more and also space out my classes to have a better schedule. And I'll popcorn it to Jayla.
Hi everyone, so excited to be here. I'm Jayla. I'm a former dual enrollment student from Colorado. And what stood out most to me was wanting to know about dual enrollment earlier. While I was in dual enrollment, it really got me more excited about learning, but I did not find out about dual enrollment until my senior year. And I just wish I knew a little bit more, and so I could navigate going to college a little easier. And I'm gonna pass it off to Sharuk.
Hello everyone, my name is Sharuk. I'm currently a panelist here today and I'm on the Deep Student Advisory Panel. I'm a former dual enrollment student from Staten Island, New York. I attended a private Islamic school in Parksville, Brooklyn throughout high school. I took around 20 dual enrollment credits at the high school and campus, including biology, psychology, and physics, as well as various AP courses. And this was from 2015 to 2018. So the two wants that resonated with me in particular are students wanting, like myself, who wanted to know about dual enrollment options earlier, as well as knowing how to balance the high school experience and dual enrollment course taking. So in particular with dual enrollment, learning about dual enrollment options earlier, I had learned, different various options when I was a sophomore in high school. That's when all these opportunities were introduced to me, how I could be able to take different college classes and have that be applicable to my college career. The AP courses that, yes, don't count as formal dual enrollment classes. However, taking an exam might be able to give you credit to, advance yourself in a degree program. And so knowing earlier would have been extremely essential for me, being able to plan out a 4-year plan so that I can balance out all my extracurriculars and the things that I'm interested in achieving for college. And then now bouncing into, the dual, like being able to balance your high school experience, as long as you can plan out things, being able to have like a planner early on, knowing how to time manage yourself, from an early on perspective as a freshman, or even in middle school, you'd be able to balance out all these opportunities and you'd have room for like uncertainty when you're in high school. And being able to again excel in all of these projects that you're taking on. And I'll popcorn it to Micah.
Hi, my name is Micah. I'm a current uh, dual enrollment student. I've taken 12 credits of dual enrollment along with a bunch of AP classes. I'm from Oregon and I go to a rural school in Marion County. And I'd say that my biggest want would also have to echo the room with knowing earlier. My school had a lot of restrictions on who could and who couldn't take these kinds of classes. And had I known that I met the requirements earlier, I would have taken them. Uh, I think that because I wasn't able to start any until sophomore year, I think that it is very important that students are being informed about these opportunities in middle school. So yeah, I think that hit everything.
Yeah, that was great, Micah, and thank you all for introducing yourselves. So one thing that I just wanted to hear that resonated a lot was learning about this earlier, like Micah said. And not only learning about it earlier, but also just being informed that dual enrollment is an option for you. I think that that is something that is very like hits close to home as a former dual enrollment student and would hit close to home for a lot of other students. My next question is for Jayla and then Micah. Are there any other wants that you wish you had during your dual enrollment experience that weren't covered in our research? Let's start with Jayla.
Yeah, I think for me, something that I wish was covered more was just that collaboration between high school advisors and college advisors. I think there was just a small little lack there that made it very hard to balance and kind of navigate the new spaces that I was entering in. I had never registered for classes before or had been in a class with that amount of rigor. And though it was exciting, I was very nervous. And so my college counselors and my college advisors and my high school advisors knowing a little bit more about dual enrollment would have definitely made it a little more easier to navigate. And then I'm gonna popcorn off to Micah.
Hi, kind of echoing those sentiments in a way, and briefing this by saying that I am a student with a disability. I am losing vision, and with that comes some complexities in dual enrollment. So I wish that dual enrollment teachers and professors were more trained on how to handle students when they have a disability. I think that because dual enrollment exists in this kind of middle area between college and high school, and both those have way different systems of handling students with disabilities. There's some gray area, and it's hard because if a professor is more trained with how college handles disabilities, then that student is less prepared. And just in general, they need more preparation. I feel like it made it very hard at times to get through the dual enrollment course when I was not having things enlarged or having accommodations met. And I feel like just more clear briefing with students with disabilities would be better. And another thing I want to highlight is since dual enrollment is often considered an advanced, like high school experience, students with learning disabilities especially are overlooked. So.
Thank you, Jayla and Micah. And thank you, Micah, for amplifying another underserved voice that we just don't typically hear in these programs. And for Jayla explaining that you knew about the rigor, but it's like, holy moly, when you're actually doing the thing, it really does help when you have those wraparound supports to support your experience. I'm gonna move into Ariana and Crystal now. My question for you both is from your dual enrollment experience, what have you learned, and from what you've learned from your peers in dual enrollment, what are some recommendations that you would have for educators running these programs? And I'll start with Ariana.
Yeah, so I would say based off my dual enrollment experience and what I've learned from my peers in dual enrollment, my biggest recommendation would probably be having the educators provide more guidance on how your dual enrollment credits can be transferred to college. This is a very complex process that a lot of people that I know, they couldn't transfer their actual dual enrollment credits when they went to college. So it just kind of felt like a waste of time for them. And this is applicable to myself as well. The very few credits that I did receive in high school, I was not able to unfortunately transfer them to the university that I am currently at. So I think that if students had more information early on about the courses and how the transferring works and how it can fit into their degree pathways, it would help them plan a lot smarter and avoid losing the value of all the hard work that they put in, and as well as also help them choose which dual enrollment courses they would like to participate in. So now I'll just popcorn this over to Crystal.
Yeah, thank you, Ariana. The best thing, in my opinion, that an educator can be within dual enrollment is transparent because, as Ariana mentioned, there was a lot of limitations with how credits transferred or what classes should be taken. And to me, I appreciated the people who were straight up with me and told me exactly, hey, I have this concern that if you choose possibly a private university, they might not transfer, or you should look into specific schools if you want all of your classes to transfer. So I appreciated the transparency from them and the guidance, and it really did influence how I chose the college I attended because the purpose for me was to save time and get a head start in college. So as much as I wanted to go to a private university or, stay close to home or something along those lines of, I really took into consideration what credits were going to transfer and how my work that I did in high school was going to be applied to what I'm going to do in college. And also be very open about not only the limitations and difficulties, but the benefits. Dual enrollment is a very, very beneficial opportunity for high school students, and it's a good experience to experiment on different interests or career goals. So if students understanding students goals, I think if the goal is to experiment, encourage them to go out and find those different classes and dip their toes in different interests. But if their goal is very set and they know what they're doing, then I would say influence them a little bit more to take those classes like that apply to the career goals. Yeah.
Thank you, Ariana and Crystal. Yeah, I will say at CCRC are constantly thinking of the question of what happens to dual enrollment students after they transfer. What happens to their credits? Where are they going? How are they applying? And it's great to hear that from two now former dual enrollment students. Happy graduation as of I think this year. It's still a question that's like prevalent and something that we need to continue to investigate. My last question before we go into the lightning round is for Sharuk. Are there ways educators can use the student experience to redesign their dual enrollment programs to be more accessible and intentional?
Yeah, so there are definitely various ways where the student experience could be considered for new educators or being able to design the classes or programs, ensuring that everybody has an opportunity to able to succeed, as well as have the resources in a way that isn't cost heavy, and just to reduce the barriers that are placed in DE programs. So again, the first point that I want to focus on is like trying to reduce as many barriers as possible. So there are barriers like transportation, technology, costs to redesign, access points in terms of where are these students going to be taking these classes? If they're taking it at high school, how is that going to fit into a schedule? What kind of resources are they going to need? Are they going to have to pay for anything? Are there any fee waivers that they can apply to? There are so many different things to consider when you want a student to succeed in a class. You don't want them worrying about all these barriers and having that essentially affect their grade that's going to be on their transcript forever. So that's something to definitely keep in mind is reducing as many barriers as possible. And then the second thing is to, enhance support systems that are already existing in the school or at the college campus. So that's, asking students what they would particularly need for advising, tutoring, and mentoring. You want these things to be able to build, the academic and social supports for students. When you're in high school, you're getting introduced to, different college classes, or you're taking classes at your high school. You want to be able to make sure that you have these support systems in place where if something unexpected or something where you're not particularly sure how exactly you would proceed in a class, you have that support in order to succeed, because you are investing your time, your energy, your resources into a class that would help you in college, and inevitably help you with different opportunities, past college and the job market, etc. And the last thing that I'll focus on is the equity lens. So you want to be able to consider the students that feel excluded based on their racial ethnicity or their different experiences in terms of income level, and use their experiences to reduce the systemic barriers and expand participation for all students. I know this is a little more difficult considering I know that in the United States there are, different schools and different neighborhoods that have different access to educational resources. So definitely try to focus on if you are in a current high school or you're a counselor who wants to connect your students to a specific college, how would you help them in particular in their academic plan? I went to a school that was under-resourced. We didn't have as many AP classes in terms of, being offered as like maybe public schools or different schools that have or charter schools that have different opportunities financially. So in terms of that, like our counselors would really hone in on the focus of the students and really expand us to be able to be like, okay, you know what, you can try to take, this AP class or this dual enrollment class or based on your interests and help us in succeeding as much as possible, based on our interests. So definitely limiting these barriers would be really helpful.
Great. That is great advice, Sharuk. I can't believe that it's like not even scripted. So it's just awesome to hear you just be able to reflect on your experience and be able to connect it to what other students are experiencing. And yeah, I really appreciate you guys as a panel. And I'm so excited to move into our lightning round. If you guys are ready for it, I don't know if there's like celebration time, but we're gonna do 3 questions. We're gonna start with Micah. And then you'll just keep passing it around. So, Micah, after I ask you this question, you're going to pass it to Ariana. Sounds good? Okay.
Okay.
First question. Tell us one thing you wish you knew before starting dual enrollment.
One thing I wish that I knew before starting dual enrollment was the vast options that existed for being able to take dual enrollment classes. I only heard and knew for the first while of doing dual enrollment, the first year, that I could take them at the high school. I did not know that they offered online alternatives through the high school and college. I didn't know they offered classes during the summer, all sorts of stuff that would have been able to better expand my dual enrollment experience and offer more classes to me. And I will be passing it to Ariana.
Okay, so one thing that I wish I knew before starting dual enrollment was how different the workload and the expectations were of these classes compared to a regular high school class. And because a lot of these college professors, they expect you to be independent, manage your own time, and keep up with assignments without constant reminders as opposed to high school classes. So I feel like if I had known about these expectations a lot earlier on, I would have been a lot more prepared with stronger like study habits and time management skills to actually succeed in the class instead of just kind of throwing me in there and just to feel and just kind of see what the outcome was. So now I'll pass this off to Crystal.
Thank you. And I 100% second everything that Ariana just said. It is very, very true and applicable. But for mine, I would say that I wish I knew how beneficial it could be in the long run if done with intention. If your intention is to explore different classes and find an interest that you think you like, then do that because it really does help taking these courses because you think you might really like math in high school and then you get to college math and it's like, this is really different and maybe not what I like. So being able to experiment beforehand is, I think, really, really beneficial. And so whatever you do, do it with intention. And I'll popcorn it off to Jayla.
Yes, I totally agree with what everyone's saying. What Crystal said really resonated with me. I truly believe that one thing I wish I knew before was the value of dual enrollment and just how many doors it can open. I think for dual enrollment for me got me to know more about networking and figuring out like what I'm interested in and the ways that I like to learn and the ways that I enjoy learning. Before dual enrollment, I knew I was going to college, but it just was like an expectation, right? And then after dual enrollment, I definitely felt that transformative change where it's like I feel like I have a connection. I'm more excited about where I'm going to go to college, more excited about figuring out what I want to learn. And so that's something that really resonates with me. And I'm going to pass this off to Sharuk.
Yeah, so just again, echoing the sentiments that everyone shared, I definitely wish I knew I can plan ahead to ensure I can maximize my opportunity of taking as many classes offered as possible. Maybe even look into resources that are at my high school and connect them to my counselor to be able to participate in, ensure that I could understand the value of these classes in terms of transferring them to whatever college I ended up attending, because a lot of the sentiment, again, that's talked about throughout this panel is that a lot of these classes that you might end up taking, whether they're the AP courses that are formal DE classes, where you take an exam and you're able to transfer that credit, or you take a particular college class and you want to transfer that to your upcoming college, knowing that some of them might not be accepted, or some of them, being maybe some will and some won't, or you need to get a particular grade. These things are extremely important to be able to be transparent to high school students who are investing their time, their energy into these resources. It's not just about the experience of taking these classes. You want to make sure that they maximize as much effort as possible so that your time isn't wasted and your money isn't wasted. So yeah, and then we can go ahead with the next question.
Thanks,
Second
Sharuk.
coordinate,
Yeah.
Micah.
Awesome. I'm gonna ask the question super quick just because we're running a little bit low on time. If we can try to shorten our answers a tiny bit, that would be awesome. I'm sorry. Who or what did you first learn about your dual enrollment program from? Micah.
I first learned about it through my freshman English teacher who offered it, who as an option for next year, and I'm passing it to Ariana.
Yeah, so I first learned about dual enrollment through my high school counselor towards the end of my sophomore year. And I'll pass it off to Crystal.
I learned about it from a friend's sibling who was currently taking classes and was my guidance. And I'll pass it off to Jayla.
I learned about it through my brother who had done it the year prior. Before that, I had no knowledge of dual enrollment, and I'll pass it off to Sharuk.
I first heard it from my high school counselor who instructed all of us in freshman year to be able to take different various courses.
Awesome. Huge mix of where you guys heard it from, and now you've all ended up here. So thank you all so much. Our last question before we go into the Q&A. What is one resource that supported your dual enrollment experience, starting with Micah?
Well, the most obvious one would be the teachers and professors who helped meet all of my accommodation needs and really helped me just thrive in the new environment. And I'll be passing to Ariana.
So for me, one resource that really helped support my dual enrollment experience was definitely social media. Like I said earlier, my school didn't have a ton of resources. So with social media, it allowed me to connect with other students who were also balancing like high school courses and dual enrollment. And it also helped me study better for the class. So now I'll pass it off to Crystal.
Thank you. One resource for me was the counselor of the community college that I was attending with dual enrollment. They provided really good academic plans and just advice towards where they would apply the credits. And I'll pass it off to Jayla.
One resource for me that really helped me was the college portal or website. It really guided me to where I needed to go and helped me connect with people that I didn't even know I could connect with. And I'll pass it off to Sharuk.
Committed instructors was the thing that supported my DE experience, so being able to go out of their way for extra office hours, extra perspective in terms of succeeding in the class, and making sure that inevitably you get the most out of the course that you're taking.
Beautiful. Thanks for wrapping us up, Sharuk, and thank you to all of the panelists. Before we move into the Q&A, I want to bring John up on screen so he can help us out. John, I think you're going to be spotlighted with us in a second. So we're going to move into the Q&A now. John, can you kick us off?
Awesome. Sure. Thank you. And first off, thank you, Aurelie, and to the the squad here. Just thank you so much for sharing these experiences. Maybe you haven't been seeing, but there's been a lot of activity in the chat and a lot of like sharing ideas and raising further questions. And just know that you're speaking to like hundreds of college and school leaders right now that are probably serving many thousands and thousands of dual enrollment students. So we really appreciate you giving us your experience because it's giving us a lot to think about in terms of how we can improve our programs. So first question from Robin here, wanting to think about kind of like when you first started as a dual enrollment student, like what kind of like orientation or onboarding into being a new dual enrollment student do you think would be most helpful? If you think back to like what you had versus what you wish you had as a part of that experience, like what advice do you have for folks who are running these like, well, getting ready to take dual enrollment courses, sort of programs? Like what advice do you have for folks working at colleges and high schools?
Okay. Sharuk, go ahead. You got it.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if we just talk or raise our hands, but regardless, anyway, yeah. So I can take on this question. I would honestly say the transparency factor is really important for students. I know that maybe, trusting a 15-year-old to take a particular course when they're a freshman in high school, you don't want them to maybe take too much or take too little or not be able to challenge themselves. But trust me, I'm telling you, as a freshman, I remember in high school wanting to be able to take these classes, being eager to take them. I was excited to take my whatever courses that were offered to me. I really maybe it sounds like a little bit not something that a 15-year-old would be focusing on. I definitely was very invested in making sure that I could take as much as possible to be instructed, informed properly, and prepared for college. That was the end goal, that transparency of letting students know, hey, some of these classes might not actually transfer, but some of them will. What are you kind of interested in taking when you're in college? I was pre-med when I was in high school and in college. So for me, I tried to outsource as many different STEM classes as possible, and they did end up helping, even though, maybe one or two didn't end up transferring for credits wise. They counted as maybe a general education requirement and didn't count as a particular, I didn't get to maybe skip a class in terms of my biology instruction, but I got to count it as my graduation requirement, which helped me focus on different things to be able to maximize those credits. So maybe the transparency factor would be really helpful for high school students in terms of onboarding them for orientation.
How about others? Any advice for college leaders and their school partners to how to onboard and give students the information they need to know when they're first starting?
Yeah, I'd like to speak to that. I think that it is really important. I kind of highlighted this in my speed round answer, but like I think that they should focus a lot on helping students outsource other classes um, at their high school or outside of their high school at the local college online to try to help better curate the what students actually want to be taking. I took a lot of just general education classes, and I would have taken more specialized classes into what my interests were, but I did not really know that they existed, and I didn't know once I knew that they existed, I didn't know how to go about taking them in that process. And I think this should all be covered in the onboarding.
I think Crystal may have wanted to say something. It seemed like you were poking.
Yeah, of course. So I think it would also be helpful to look at possible programs that can be started at the school for California. I attend school in California. We had an early college academy program, which was started your second year of high school and went on to when you graduated. And it was just super helpful in terms of we had a cohort, so I could relate to a community of people who were all going through the same thing and we could help each other out. And we had a professor come in to our high school. So our first two periods would be taught by the professor from the community college. So looking into programs that could be started like that in terms of it's guided, but there's still community college classes would be super beneficial, not only for the educators, but also for the students.
We got a couple of questions sort of about what it's like to be a student like at a university with many perhaps dual enrollment credits from high school. One from Claudia about like what was that first semester, that first year like in terms of, you're like, were you able to kind of get into the classes you want, or how did it work with all your credits, like transferring and applying? Um, And then another question about sort of like just what was it like to be a student with so many credits, perhaps compared to others that didn't have so many kind of advanced standing.
Yes, I think I can talk on this one because I had a lot of credits. But going in, I got to clear my general education, all of them. So I will preface, as I mentioned, transparency, it is difficult. My first quarter was rough because I didn't really have not free classes, but usually general ed helps you like space out the more like STEM like classes. So I had a very stacked schedule and it was difficult, but learning, using everything that I had learned already taking these classes in terms of time management and prioritization is what really helped me. And it also helped for enrollment times because I had close to, I think it was sophomore standing in terms of enrollment because of the credits that I transferred in. So I was able to get early enrollment for classes where other people, like freshmen, had later times. So it was beneficial in that aspect.
I think I could also speak on this too. Although none of my transfer credits even transferred into college, and I barely had any. I will say though, taking the dual enrollment classes definitely did help me when I came here to university, just because of the fact I built up this kind of momentum for studying. So I developed a lot more better studying habits that I personally believe are helping me right now in university. So it's not really like credit related, but I do think that dual enrollment can still help students even if their credits aren't formally transferred.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I only had 16 credits going in, so all of my credits were able to transfer at the college that I go to currently. And I think what dual enrollment did for me was just prepare me for everything that I needed to know, like how to navigate these spaces, how to talk to professors, how to like put my schedule together and really like capture the goals that I wanted to capture that I wasn't thinking about, let's say a few years prior. And so dual enrollment was really helpful in that aspect.
So we're near end of time, but there is one more. And I think Ariana, you were kind of getting at this a little bit, I think, but it'd be cool to hear from the rest of you. Kind of like, what are some of the best skills that you gained from dual enrollment that you've used after high school?
I can jump in about this. So, different skills I would say are the time management for sure, knowing how to pace your class, knowing how to make sure that you are like studying the content per week in a specific way. I know that all of us have crammed in college at some point or in high school. However, it's the best thing to do, honestly, is to prepare week by week so you're able to fit in those extracurriculars, those internships, those opportunities. I would definitely say I learned that a lot when I was in high school, being able to manage all of these things. When I went to college, I already had that like base skill information, the content from these classes, as well as the skill set to be able to, again, manage all of my high school, my college courses while taking from the get-go, from freshman year, different extracurriculars to be able to stack them throughout the years and to build even more skills.
Yeah, I can also add, I think the biggest skill for me was learning that it's okay to ask questions and how to ask questions because in classes it can, especially in college classes, it can get intimidating, like the professor's going possibly too fast, you're not sure like really what's happening. And so like learning that, hey, I should attend office hours, I should go ask my questions, and I should find the help that I need. And being able to do that was the biggest thing that dual enrollment assisted me with.
Jayla or Micah?
Well, I'm still in high school, just part-time now, and I will be transferring to college as soon as possible. But I think just I can tell from like freshman, sophomore to my senior year that I've definitely gotten a lot better with time management, and a lot better at knowing when I'm going to be burnt out. I think procrastination's gotten better. I think that the heavy workload at certain points has made it to where, by comparison, lighter workloads feel so much less light. I mean, so much more light than they actually are at times. And I really feel like I can take on a lot more than I used to be able to. So, yeah.
Yes, I agree. I think socially, it definitely prepared me socially as well as just like knowing how to navigate these spaces, as well as being able to balance both my professional and personal life now. I felt like in high school, what might have been like a challenge, dual enrollment definitely prepared me for the rigor of both academic courses and kind of life. And so it kind of definitely helped me transition into adulthood and kind of navigate college spaces and social and professional spaces way better than I feel like I could before.
Great. John, I'm gonna bring it home because we're at time. I'm just gonna share my screen one more time. And thank you again to all panelists for being here. Just want to do a quick shout out. Follow us on social media at Community CCRC or at Dual Enrollment Squad, or both, even cooler. We're also on LinkedIn. You can find a blog on the CCRC blog about each panelist, and half of our panelists are working on our social media page, so check them out there. And lastly, if you're interested in connecting with us at the Community College Research Center about the panel or about anything related to the Dual Enrollment Equity Pathways research, please feel free to scan this QR code, email me at any time. My email is always open, and reach out to us at Dual Enrollment Squad on Instagram. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you, John and Sarah. And thank you to our tech team who's in the background. Have a great day, everyone.